The hub station floated like a silver coin in the middle of the galaxy. Ships from 100 worlds came and went every day. Its wide halls were filled with voices, each speaking in different languages, and the air always carried the scent of spices, oils, and strange flowers brought from far-off planets. Raylan, a young human engineer, had lived on the hub station for 3 years. He was good with machines, fast hands, quick thinking. Most days, he repaired ship engines, air systems, or the heavy cargo lifters that kept the station running. His life was simple: work, eat, sleep, repeat. He had friends from different species, but nothing too close. One morning, something unusual happened. As Raylan walked through the main trade hall, carrying his repair tools, he noticed a group of alien women sitting at a cafe. They were all different, some with shimmering scales, others with soft fur, and one with glowing blue eyes, but they all turned to look at him as he passed. At first, he thought it was just coincidence, but then they started smiling. He nodded politely and kept walking, feeling slightly awkward. Later that day, in the docking bay, it happened again. A tall alien woman from the crystal world of Tshara stopped in front of him. Her body was partly transparent, like glass filled with golden light. She tilted her head and said softly, "You are human, yes?" Raylan blinked. "You yes." She smiled and stepped aside without another word, letting him pass. He didn't know whether to be confused or worried. That night, while eating in the workers' canteen, his friend Kavor, a four-armed cargo pilot, sat across from him. "You noticed, didn't you?" Kavor said, chewing on something that smelled like burnt cinnamon. "Noticed what?" Raylan asked. "The looks, the smiles, the way they talk to you." "Human men have a reputation," Raylan laughed. "What kind of reputation?" Kavor leaned in, lowering his voice. "The kind that makes alien girls curious. Some think you're brave, some think you're strange, and some think you're romantic." Raylan shook his head. "That's ridiculous. I just fix engines." Kavor shrugged. "Doesn't matter. The galaxy remembers." Stories spread. Every alien girl in this sector has heard something about human men. Raylan didn't know whether Kavor was joking or not, but over the next few days, he began to notice it more and more. A merchant from the jungle moon smiled when he adjusted her cargo lifter. A nurse from the medical ward offered him extra food in the station cafe. Even a quiet researcher from the icy world of Pelru gave him a flower carved from frozen crystal, saying, for luck, it wasn't just kindness, it felt like something else. 1 week later, while repairing a faulty air processor near the visitor quarters, Raylan overheard a conversation. 2 alien women were speaking in a language he partly understood. They didn't notice him nearby. "I heard on Drixa 5, a human man pulled a stranger from a burning reactor. Even though he could have died," one said. "Yes, and last year, on Mirren Station, a human helped fight off raiders with nothing but a wrench," the other replied. "They say human men don't run from danger when their friends are in trouble." They laughed softly, like they were sharing a secret. Raylan stayed quiet, pretending to work. Inside, he felt a strange mix of embarrassment and curiosity. Was this really how the galaxy saw human men? Brave, loyal, worth talking about? He had never thought about it before. That evening, he met his old teacher, Harold, in the station's observation deck. Harold was a human too, older, with silver hair and slow movements. "I hear you've been getting attention," Harold said. With a smile, Raylan sighed. "It's strange. Why would they look at me like that? I'm just an engineer." Harold looked out at the stars. "When humans first joined the galactic community, we didn't have the strongest ships or the most advanced technology, but we had something else, an unusual way of thinking. Many species are cautious by nature. They avoid danger if they can. Humans, sometimes, we walk straight into it. We protect people, even strangers, if we feel it's right. That is rare. Out here," Raylan frowned, "but I've never done anything heroic." Harold chuckled. "You haven't yet, but the stories aren't just about you. They're about your kind. And those stories travel faster than any ship." A few days later, Raylan's life took another strange turn. While working in Dock 6, he was approached by a tall alien woman wearing a flowing robe the color of the ocean. Her skin shimmered like wet sand, and her dark eyes seemed to hold deep water inside them. "Are you Raylan, the human engineer?" she asked. "Yes," he said, setting down his tools. "I am Nereva, princess of the aquatic world Nere," she said calmly. "My people need your help. Our ocean turbines are failing, and the currents are becoming dangerous. Many engineers have tried to fix them, but we believe a human may succeed." Raylan blinked. "Why me? There must be better engineers, perhaps," she said with a small smile. "But our history remembers humans who risk themselves for others. We trust human hands." Before he could argue, she handed him a small silver disc of formal request for service and walked away without looking. Back Kavor, who had been watching from across the bay, walked over, grinning. "Well, my friend," he said, "looks like you're about to find out exactly why every alien girl in the galaxy dreams of marrying a human man." Raylan stood there, the silver disc warm in his palm, feeling a mixture of pride, worry, and disbelief. He had come to the hub station to fix machines and live a quiet life. But now, it seemed, the galaxy had other plans for him, somewhere deep inside. He felt something shift, a question forming in his mind. What if the stories were true? The day after receiving the silver disc, Raylan couldn't focus on anything else. He kept turning it over in his hands, feeling the smooth metal and the engraved seal of the Nere royal family. The symbol was beautiful to curved waves crossing each other, with a pearl in the center. He had heard of Nere before. It was a water world, almost entirely covered by oceans. Most of its cities floated beneath the waves, protected by great, transparent domes. The people were known for their graceful movements and melodic voices, but also for keeping to themselves. Very few outsiders were invited into their underwater capital. So why him? Kavor, as always, had an opinion. "You're overthinking," the four-armed pilot said while chewing on a spicy root snack. "They have heard stories about humans. They want to see if you're the real thing. It's like when a trader hears about a rare fruit, he has to taste it for himself." "That's a strange way to put it," Raylan replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm just an engineer, Kavor. I fix turbines, yes, but I've never worked on ocean machines before." "Doesn't matter," Kavor said, waving a hand. "They don't just want skill. They want the way you think. Humans don't quit when things get dangerous. That's what they're betting on." 2 days later, Raylan boarded a small passenger ship bound for Nere. The journey took only 8 hours through a stable wormhole corridor. But the change was dramatic. From the moment Nere appeared through the ship's viewport, Raylan was stunned. The planet shone like a blue jewel, covered in swirling shades of turquoise and deep navy. Thin bands of white clouds moved lazily above the oceans. There was no land in sight, only water stretching endlessly as the ship descended. He saw clusters of massive floating platforms, trade stations, harbors, and docking towers. Between them, sleek silver submersibles moved in neat lines, carrying goods and passengers into the depths below. At the arrival hall, Princess Nereva herself was waiting for him. She was dressed in a shimmering outfit that seemed woven from strands of liquid light. Her skin had a soft golden tone under the station lights, but her eyes still carried that deep ocean darkness. "Welcome to Nere, Raylan," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I'm glad you accepted our request." "I'm honored," he replied honestly. "This way," she said, and without further small talk, she led him toward a long corridor lined with glass walls. Outside, water pressed against the glass, filled with darting fish of every color. They stepped into a sleek submersible, which sank smoothly into the deeper waters. The outside lights lit up the path ahead, revealing giant kelp forests and graceful creatures with long, ribbon-like fins. Schools of glowing fish swirled in the dark like living constellations. As they traveled, Nereva explained the problem. "Our capital dome is powered by 5 ancient turbines built long before I was born. They control the ocean currents around our city and provide energy for our systems. For many years they have been reliable, but recently, one of them began to fail. Our engineers cannot repair it completely. Every fix is temporary, and if it stops, our currents will turn wild, and the city will be at risk. Raylan listened carefully. Do you have the turbine schematics? She nodded and handed him a data tablet. Yes, but they are incomplete. The builders left no records. We do not even know the full design. That made Raylan frown. No records? Then how do you maintain them? With patience, Nereva said. A faint smile on her lips, and careful guesswork. But perhaps your human mind will see what ours have not. The submersible finally arrived. At the Capitol Dome, Raylan's first view of it made his breath catch. The dome was enormous, bigger than the hub station's largest hall, and entirely transparent inside. Glowing towers rose like coral spires, their tips lit by golden lamps. Gardens of strange water plants swayed in controlled currents. Nere. Citizens moved gracefully through wide streets, some swimming freely while others walked along air-filled paths. From above, it looked like a living city inside a pearl. They surfaced inside a docking bay, where a team of attendants greeted them. Nereva led Raylan directly to a secure room with large display screens, holographic models, and engineering tools. This is your workspace, she said. The damaged turbine lies 2 kilometers east of the dome, anchored to the ocean floor. I can take you there when you are ready. Raylan placed his tool bag on the table. I'll start with the schematics tonight. Hours passed as he studied the incomplete diagrams. The turbine design was unlike anything he had seen before. The inner structure was a puzzle, layers of interlocking rings, water channels, and rotating blades powered by deep-sea thermal vents without full schematics. Any repair would be risky. Still, something about the challenge made Raylan's mind sharpen. He remembered Harrow's words, humans don't run from danger when others are at risk. Late that night, Nereva returned. She was carrying 2 cups of a warm, sweet-smelling drink. You work late, she said. This isn't a job where I can be careless, Raylan replied, accepting the drink. If I make one wrong adjustment, the turbine could break completely. Nereva studied him for a moment. You are not afraid. I am, Raylan admitted. But that doesn't mean I won't try. Her lips curved into a small smile. That is exactly why you are here. The next morning, they traveled to the damaged turbine in a larger submersible. As they approached, the structure came into view, an immense machine half buried in coral and rock, its metal surface warmed by centuries of ocean currents. Massive blades turned slowly inside a wide circular frame, but Raylan could hear an uneven grinding noise. Something deep within was failing. The Nere engineers swam around it in sleek diving suits, checking instruments. One of them swam up to Nereva and shook his head. It is worse than we thought, he said. Nereva turned to Raylan. Can you fix it? Raylan stared at the huge machine, his mind racing through possibilities. He didn't know yet, but he also knew that turning back wasn't an option. He adjusted his diving mask and said, let's find out. That moment marked the beginning of something Raylan didn't yet understand. For him, it was just another repair, difficult, yes, but still a job. For the people of Nere, it was more than that. In their eyes, a human had come all the way from another world, not for profit, not for fame, but because he was asked for help. And already, whispers had begun spreading through the coral streets. The human has arrived. The water was cold, even through the diving suit. Raylan felt it press against him from all sides as he descended into the deep, following the guide lights on the side of the submersible. Above him, the surface was just a faint glow. Below, the great shadow of the turbine loomed like an ancient beast sleeping on the ocean floor. Nereva's voice came through the comm in his helmet. Stay close to the guide rail. The currents here are strong. Raylan adjusted his grip on the underwater repair kit and swam forward, round him. Nere engineers moved smoothly, their movements far more graceful than his clumsy kicks. They were used to this environment. For him, every motion required effort. The turbine's outer ring turned slowly, groaning like an old door. Its size was overwhelming. He could have fit his entire workshop inside one of its hollow blades. The sound was uneven, a dull grinding that made his stomach tighten. Raylan reached the main maintenance hatch. Tenere divers floated nearby, working to loosen the heavy bolts through the water. One of them spoke in their melodic language, but Raylan couldn't understand. Nereva translated through the comm. They say the problem is inside. A piece of the inner rotor is damaged. If it breaks completely, the blades will jam. The sudden stop could destroy the whole system. Raylan frowned. How far inside is it? 20 meters, Nereva replied, and the passage is narrow. That made him pause. Narrow underwater passages were dangerous. One wrong move and he could get stuck. But turning back was not an option. Open the hatch, Raylan said. Inside. The turbine was a maze of curved metal and spinning machinery. He had to move carefully, timing his movements between the slow, massive blades that passed through the chamber. Each one was heavy enough to crush him instantly if he misjudged the distance. His helmet light revealed the damage, a cracked section of the rotor, shaking violently with each turn. Pieces of worn metal rattled loose, threatening to fly off into the moving parts. The crack was spreading. I'll need to shut it down, Raylan said into the comm. No, Nereva replied quickly. If you stop it, the currents around the dome will go wild. People could be swept away. He exhaled slowly. Then I'll fix it while it's still moving. There was a long silence on the comm. Then Nereva said quietly, be careful. Working in a live turbine was madness, but Raylan had no other choice. He waited until a blade passed, then pushed himself into the gap. Every few seconds, another blade moved past his shoulder, missing him by less than half a meter. The deep thrum of the machine echoed through his bones. He removed a stabilizer brace from his kit and pressed it against the crack. The metal vibrated so hard that his hands shook. It was like trying to sew cloth in the middle of a storm. A sudden current slammed into him, almost knocking him against a passing blade. He grabbed a support bar and held on until the water settled. His breathing was fast, fogging the inside of his helmet. You're halfway there, Nereva's voice said, calm but tense. Just a little more. The repair took longer than expected, twice. His tools slipped from his hands, and he had to snatch them back before they drifted into the moving parts. Once, a sudden shudder in the machine made the whole structure tilt, throwing him sideways. But at last, the brace locked into place. The crack stopped widening, and the grinding noise faded to a softer hum. It's holding, Raylan said. For now. The relief in Nereva's voice was clear. Then come back. You've done enough. But as Raylan turned to leave, another sound reached his ears, a sharp metallic snap. His eyes darted to the far side of the rotor, where another section had come loose. This one was worse. A large panel was hanging by a single bolt, swinging dangerously close to the moving blades. If it broke free, it could shatter the entire rotor. Nereva, there's another break, Raylan said quickly. If I leave it, the turbine will fail within hours. You've already risked enough. She began. No time, Raylan cut in. I'm fixing it now. Getting to the second break meant passing through an even narrower space between the moving blades. He had to time each push perfectly, pressing himself against the cold metal when a blade passed, and then darting forward in the split-second gap. Before the next one came, he reached the panel just as the last bolt gave way. Without thinking, he grabbed it with both hands. The weight nearly dragged him toward the blades, but he planted his boots against the inner wall and strained with all his strength. For a moment, the world narrowed to the pressure in his arms, the roar of water in his ears, and the knowledge that if he let go, the city's turbine and maybe the city itself would be lost. He forced the panel back into place and jammed a repair clamp over it. His arms burned, his breath came in short gasps, but the panel stayed fixed. When Raylan finally swam out of the turbine's core, the Neri engineers waiting near the hatch stared at him with wide eyes. One of them tapped his chest lightly in the Neri gesture of respect. Back in the submersible, Nereva removed her helmet, her hair floating like golden threads in the water. You should have turned back, she said softly. Raylan shrugged, exhausted. Couldn't? Not while it was still broken. She studied him for a long moment. Now I understand the stories. By the time they returned to the Capitol Dome, word had already spread. In the coral-lined streets, people whispered as Raylan passed. Merchants paused in their stalls, children pointed from the walkways, and swimmers rose from the water to see the human who had braved the turbine's heart. For Raylan, it had been just another repair, dangerous, yes, but still part of his work. For the people of Nere, it was something more, proof that the old tales about human courage were true. That night, as he lay in his guest's quarters, the gentle sound of water flowing through the dome's channels filled the air. He thought about what Harrow had said back on the hub station. It's not your strength that charms the galaxy, it's your loyalty. Maybe, Raylan thought, that loyalty was the reason he couldn't walk away when the turbine was still in danger. And maybe, just maybe, it was the reason why alien eyes followed him wherever he went. The turbine on Nere continued to run smoothly for weeks after the repair. The currents around the Capitol dome became stable again, and the people no longer feared sudden floods or dangerous waves. For them, it was more than just a mechanical success. It was a story worth telling. The story began in the coral markets, told by merchants who had seen the human climb inside a moving turbine. It was told again in the tea houses by the docks, where old fishermen spoke of his bravery. It was repeated in schools, where teachers explained how one man's determination had saved an entire city from disaster. And as all stories do in the galaxy, it began to travel. The first place it reached was the trading hub near the edge of the Nere sector. A group of merchants there told it to passing freighter crews. The crews carried it to other stations, where it grew in detail. Some versions said Raylan had fought off a giant sea creature while fixing the turbine. Others claimed he had been inside for hours with no air supply. By the time the story reached the crystal world of Tshara, Raylan's name was already well known. On the icy moon of Pelru, workers in the mining camps spoke of the human who worked where no one else dared. Even in the far jungles of Drixify, traders laughed and said, "Ah, you've heard of him too." Raylan didn't know any of this. At first, after finishing his work on Nere, he returned to the hub station quietly, planning to resume his usual repair jobs. But things were not the same. On his first day back, a stranger in the docking bay greeted him by name. "You are Raylan, yes? The one who saved the Nere dome?" The man asked, eyes wide with admiration. "I repaired a turbine," Raylan corrected, but the stranger just smiled as if it was the same thing. Later, while eating in the station cafe, two alien women at the next table whispered and glanced at him. He pretended not to notice, but he could hear parts of their conversation. They were talking about the human engineer who never turns away from danger. Kavor, sitting across from him, grinned. "Told you this would happen." Within a week, Raylan began receiving messages from faraway places. One came from a research team on the volcanic moon Varine 3, asking if he could help repair their unstable geothermal plant. Another came from a small farming colony whose wind generators had broken during a storm. A third was from an asteroid station plagued by constant power failures. Some offered large payments, others simply promised food, lodging, and the gratitude of their people. But all of them had one thing in common: they trusted him before even meeting him. Raylan wasn't sure how to feel about this sudden fame. He was glad his work had helped people, but he didn't see himself as special. One evening, while repairing a cargo lifter in the maintenance bay, Harrow stopped by. The older man leaned against the wall, watching Raylan work. "You've been busy," Harrow said. "Not really," Raylan replied. "Just getting strange messages." Harrow smiled faintly. "The galaxy likes its heroes, and humans have always been mysterious to most species. They wonder why we do what we do. You fixed a machine. Yes, but you also refused to leave when it was dangerous. That's what they remember." Raylan shook his head. "I don't think I'm a hero." "That's exactly why they trust you," Harrow said. Meanwhile, the stories kept spreading. On a desert planet called Karesh, a young mechanic heard of Raylan's work and decided to study human engineering methods. In the floating cities of Gasria, workers began saying, "Work like a human," when someone showed determination. Even in the distant mining stations of the Outer Rim, people joked about needing a Raylan whenever something seemed impossible to fix. The legend was no longer just about one man. It had become part of a larger idea. Humans were seen as a people who would take risks for others, even strangers. A month after returning from Nere, Raylan received a formal invitation from the Council of Mirren Station, a large orbital city in a region known for pirate raids. The Message read, "We request your assistance in repairing our shield generators. We have been attacked twice in the last cycle, and the next attack may be worse. We believe only someone with your reputation can handle this." Kavor was thrilled. "Mirren is dangerous, my friend. This is exactly the kind of place where your legend will grow." Raylan sighed. "I'm not trying to build a legend. I just want to fix machines, then fix their shield generators," Kavor said with a grin. "And if you happen to save the station from pirates while you're at it, well, I'm sure the galaxy will be very interested." Before leaving for Mirren Station, Raylan stopped at the observation deck of the hub. He looked out at the stars, thinking of the path ahead. He had left Earth years ago, expecting nothing more than a life of quiet work. But now, his name was being spoken on worlds he had never visited. Strangers were calling him for help. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, alien women still whispered about human courage, loyalty, and kindness. He didn't know where this path would lead. But deep down, he felt something stirring, a quiet understanding that his life had changed forever. Back on Nere, in the coral gardens of the Capitol Dome, Princess Nereva stood by the flowing water channels, speaking with her advisors. The turbine still ran strong, its steady hum a reminder of the human who had risked himself for her people. When a young attendant asked her if the stories about him were true, she smiled. "Yes," she said. "And the truth is even better than the stories." The attendant tilted his head. "Why is that?" "Because," she replied, "he didn't come here for glory or reward. He came because we asked for help. And that," she said softly, "is why every alien girl in the galaxy dreams of marrying a human man." The trip to Mirren Station took 5 days. Raylan used most of the time to review the station's schematics, checking the layout of their shield generators. But on the second day, a message came through the ship's comm system. The sender was someone Raylan had never met, historian Ellerin of the Avari. The Avari were a long-lived species known for their silver-blue skin, delicate head crests, and memory archives that stretched back thousands of years. They were respected as keepers of truth and culture. Ellerin's message was polite but direct. "Human Raylan, I have heard your name and the events of Nere. I believe it is time you understand why your kind is spoken of the way it is. I will meet you at Mirren Station upon your arrival." Raylan was curious. He had heard pieces of the mystery from Kavor and Harrow, but never the whole truth. Why did humans have such a reputation? Why were alien women and sometimes entire worlds so interested in them? When the ship docked at Mirren Station, the air was filled with the scent of metal and ozone. The station was large, but its corridors showed signs of damage from past pirate attacks, scorch marks on the walls, repairs that looked hurried. Before heading to the shield control room, Raylan kept his promise and met Ellerin in one of the station's quiet gardens. It was a place filled with hanging vines and pools of still water, a calm corner in an otherwise tense city. Ellerin stood waiting, tall and graceful, dressed in layered robes, the color of deep twilight. His eyes were bright, sharp, and ancient. "Raylan of Earth," Ellerin greeted, bowing slightly. "Historian," Raylan replied. "You said you could explain something to me." "Yes," Ellerin said, gesturing for him to sit on a stone bench by the water. "You have been living among the stars for years now. You have seen the way people react to you, even when they know little about you personally, and you have begun to wonder why." Raylan nodded. "I've been called brave, loyal, but I'm just doing my job." "That," Ellerin said, leaning forward, "is exactly why your kind is admired." He began to speak slowly, his voice carrying the weight of many years in the galaxy. Most species evolved in environments where safety was the key to survival. Danger meant extinction, so they learned to avoid it at all costs. Their instincts tell them to calculate the risk, and if it is too high, they step back. Raylan listened closely. "Humans," Ellerin continued, "are different. Your species evolved in a dangerous world, storms, predators, harsh winters, unstable land. Yet you survived not by hiding alone, but by protecting one another. You learned to face danger together. You fight for your kin, your tribe, your friends, and often you fight for strangers." "That doesn't seem so unusual," Raylan said. "To you, perhaps," Ellerin replied. But in the greater galaxy, it is rare. Some species will help their own, yes, but risk their life for a stranger, for someone they owe nothing to. That is almost unheard of, and yet humans do it again and again. Raylan thought of the turbine on Nere, of refusing to leave until it was fixed. He had not been thinking of fame only, that people in the dome could be in danger if it failed. Elrond studied him. Do you know the first time the galaxy truly noticed your kind? Raylan shook his head. It was during the Arkan Wars, Elrond said, centuries ago, before your people even had faster-than-light travel. A human merchant ship stumbled into a battle between two alien fleets. They had no stake in it. They could have fled. Instead, they stayed to evacuate civilians from a burning city, civilians who were not human, who had nothing to give in return. Many of them died doing so. The historian's eyes softened. We recorded that day. And when humans finally entered the galactic community, the memory of that sacrifice was still alive. Raylan was silent for a moment. So, that's why people talk about humans the way they do, because of old stories, not just old stories. Elrond corrected. You see, every few years, another story appears. A human engineer repairing a reactor during a solar storm. A human pilot flying into a war zone to deliver medicine. A human diver pulling strangers from a sinking habitat. It happens often enough that it has become part of your reputation. Raylan almost laughed. And here I thought they were just making it up. Elrond smiled faintly. Oh, some do exaggerate. That is the way of stories. But the core remains true. And as for why alien, women, in particular, speak of your kind, it is because many seek a partner they can trust when all else fails. Your kind has shown, time and again, that you will stand and fight when others would turn away. The historian stood and looked toward the garden's entrance. You may think yourself ordinary, Raylan, but too many in the galaxy, you are a living reminder of those values. That is why your presence draws such attention and why your actions carry more weight. Then you realize. Raylan rose as well. I'm just trying to help where I can. That, Elrond said, is exactly the point. As they left the garden, Raylan felt a quiet shift in his thoughts. The strange glances, the smiles, the requests for help, they were not just random curiosity. They were part of something bigger, something built over centuries of human behavior. He thought back to Harrow's words on the hub station. It's not your strength that charms the galaxy, it's your loyalty. Now, he understood. Later that day, Raylan went to the shield control room to begin his work. The Mirren station engineers explained the situation. Their main generator was unstable. The wiring damaged from repeated pirate attacks. If it failed during the next raid, the station would be defenseless. Raylan listened carefully, then got to work. Hours passed as he crawled through narrow maintenance tunnels, repairing lines and replacing worn parts. Sweat ran down his neck, and his hands were covered in fine dust. But he kept going. When a tremor shook the station, likely from a pirate scout ship testing their defenses, some engineers paused nervously. Raylan just tightened his grip on his tools and kept working. The truth was, now that he understood why humans were seen the way they were, he felt an unspoken responsibility to live up to it. By the time he finished the last connection, the station's shields glowed with steady power. The chief engineer clapped him on the back, relief plain in his eyes. Mira knows you, the man said. If the pirates come, we'll be ready. Raylan just nodded. I was asked for help. That's enough. As he left the control room, a thought came quietly to him. Maybe Elrond was right. Maybe it's not about what I think I am. Maybe it's about what the galaxy needs me to be. Raylan stayed on Mirren Station for 2 more days, just to make sure the shield repairs were stable. The engineers insisted everything was running perfectly, but he still checked the systems himself before leaving. Old habit. When he finally boarded the transport back to the hub station, he thought the trip home would be quiet. It wasn't. On the second day of travel, he noticed other passengers whispering and glancing at him. Some nodded respectfully when they passed. A young mechanic from a mining colony shyly asked for a picture with him, saying, "My father told me about Nere. Now Mirantu, you're Raylan." Raylan didn't know what to say. So he just nodded and smiled. When they arrived at the hub station, things became even stranger. The docking bay was crowded, not just with workers, but with people holding banners, cameras, and even flowers. The moment Raylan stepped out of the airlock, the noise hit him: cheers, clapping, and dozens of voices calling his name. He froze for a second, unsure what was happening. He had seen crowds like this for famous pilots or sports champions, never for a maintenance engineer. Harold was waiting for him near the back, grinning like he'd just won a fortune. "Told you," Harold said when Raylan reached him. "Word travels fast in the galaxy. You save Nere, then you save Mirren, and suddenly half the sector knows your name." And Harold's grin widened. "So do people far beyond this sector?" As they walked, Harold began explaining that apparently the story of Mirren Station's repair had spread within hours. Some crew member had recorded him crawling through the damaged wiring while tremors shook the station, and the video had gone viral across several systems. People were calling it the human who wouldn't stop, and then the messages started coming in. Raylan thought Harold was joking until they reached his small apartment module. The comm terminal was flashing with dozens of alerts when he opened them. The messages filled the screen: thank you notes, requests for interviews, offers of work from distant colonies, and, surprisingly, several personal proposals. One message came from a merchant on a desert world, another from a diplomat on a water planet. A third was from an engineer who had worked with humans before and wanted to discuss partnership in both work and life. Raylan stared at the screen. Why would they send me this?" Harold leaned against the wall, still smiling. "Because you're exactly what the historian told you. You're the kind of person people trust when things go wrong. In the galaxy, that's rarer than you think. And for many, it's the most valuable thing in a partner." Over the next week, Raylan couldn't walk through the hub without someone stopping to talk to him. A cargo pilot thanked him for inspiring her crew to stand their ground during a recent asteroid storm. A station guard said his younger sister had written a school essay about humans who help others, and used Raylan as her main example. It was strange, almost unreal. He had not set out to be a symbol of anything. He just did what felt right. But the galaxy had decided otherwise. One evening, Raylan sat in the quiet observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. He thought about the historian's words: "You are a living reminder of those values." For a long time, he had thought the interest in humans, especially the talk about alien women wanting to marry them, was just a strange rumor, maybe even a joke. Now he saw it differently. It wasn't about appearance or strength alone. It was about what humans represented: loyalty, courage, and a willingness to stand by others when it mattered most. He thought of the first alien he had helped years ago, when he was still new to space, a trader stranded with a broken ship outside a dangerous asteroid field. Back then, he hadn't been thinking about building a reputation. He had just wanted to make sure the man got home safely. It seemed that was how all the stories started: small acts, done without expectation. But remember, for years, when Harold joined him on the observation deck, Raylan spoke quietly. "I think I understand now. It's not just that humans are different. It's that we remind people of something they want to believe still exists. That someone will stand by them when everything is falling apart." Harold nodded. "Exactly. And the galaxy, well, it doesn't forget those who prove it true." A few days later, Raylan received an official invitation from the Council of Mirren Station to attend a celebration in his honor. They were naming him an honorary guardian of their world, a title given only to those who had risked everything for the station's safety. He almost turned it down. Ceremonies weren't his style, but Harold insisted. "You don't go for yourself," Harold said. "You go for everyone who believes in what you stand for." So Raylan went, and when he stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd, he saw more than just gratitude. He saw hope, people from different worlds, different species, standing together and cheering not just for him, but for the idea that unity and courage still mattered. After the ceremony, a young officer from Mirren approached him. She had green skin, sharp golden eyes, and a uniform neatly pressed. "I don't want to take much of your time," she said, "but I wanted you to know, before the repairs, I had planned to transfer off the station. I didn't think it was worth the risk to stay. But when I saw you working through the tremors, not stopping, I realized something. If you were willing to fight for our home, I could too. So I stayed. And now, it's safer here because of you." Raylan didn't know how to reply. He just gave a quiet nod. On the journey back to the hub after the celebration, Raylan sat in his seat, watching the stars drift past. Messages continued to come in, some personal, some official, and yes, more proposals. He didn't answer them all, but he understood now why they came. It wasn't just about him. It was about what humans meant to the galaxy. As the hub came into view, Raylan thought to himself, maybe the stories will keep growing. Maybe the galaxy will keep making them bigger than life. And maybe that's a good thing, because if even one person finds the courage to stand and protect someone else because of those stories, then they're worth telling. And somewhere out there, on worlds of ice, desert, water, and forest, someone was telling the story of the human who wouldn't stop adding their own details, making it a little more dramatic. And in every version, the heart of it stayed the same. When danger came, the human stayed. Raylan stayed on Mirren Station for 2 more days, just to make sure the shield repairs were stable. The engineers insisted everything was running perfectly, but he still checked the systems himself before leaving. Old habit. When he finally boarded the transport back to the hub station, he thought the trip home would be quiet. It wasn't. On the second day of travel, he noticed other passengers whispering and glancing at him. Some nodded respectfully when they passed. A young mechanic from a mining colony shyly asked for a picture with him, saying, "My father told me about Nere. Now Mirantu, you're Raylan." Raylan didn't know what to say, so he just nodded and smiled. When they arrived at the hub station, things became even stranger. The docking bay was crowded, not just with workers, but with people holding banners, cameras, and even flowers. The moment Raylan stepped out of the airlock, the noise hit him: cheers, clapping, and dozens of voices calling his name. He froze for a second, unsure what was happening. He had seen crowds like this for famous pilots or sports champions, never for a maintenance engineer. Harold was waiting for him near the back, grinning like he'd just won a fortune. "Told you," Harold said when Raylan reached him. "Word travels fast in the galaxy. You save Nere, then you save Mirren, and suddenly half the sector knows your name." And Harold's grin widened. "So do people far beyond this sector?" As they walked, Harold began explaining. Apparently, the story of Mirren Station's repair had spread within hours. Some crew member had recorded him crawling through the damaged wiring while tremors shook the station, and the video had gone viral across several systems. People were calling it the human who wouldn't stop, and then the messages started coming in. Raylan thought Harold was joking until they reached his small apartment module. The comm terminal was flashing with dozens of alerts when he opened them. The messages filled the screen: thank you notes, requests for interviews, offers of work from distant colonies, and, surprisingly, several personal proposals. One message came from a merchant on a desert world, another from a diplomat on a water planet. A third was from an engineer who had worked with humans before and wanted to discuss partnership in both work and life. Raylan stared at the screen. Why would they send me this?" Harold leaned against the wall, still smiling. "Because you're exactly what the historian told you. You're the kind of person people trust when things go wrong. In the galaxy, that's rarer than you think. And for many, it's the most valuable thing in a partner." Over the next week, Raylan couldn't walk through the hub without someone stopping to talk to him. A cargo pilot thanked him for inspiring her crew to stand their ground during a recent asteroid storm. A station guard said his younger sister had written a school essay about humans who help others and used Raylan as her main example. It was strange, almost unreal. He had not set out to be a symbol of anything. He just did what felt right. But the galaxy had decided otherwise. One evening, Raylan sat in the quiet observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. He thought about the historian's words, "You are a living reminder of those values," for a long time. He had thought the interest in humans, especially the talk about alien women, Wanting to marry them was just a strange rumor, maybe even a joke. Now he saw it differently. It wasn't about appearance or strength alone. It was about what humans represented: loyalty, courage, and a willingness to stand by others when it mattered most. He thought of the first alien he had helped years ago, when he was still new to space, a trader stranded with a broken ship outside a dangerous asteroid field. Back then, he hadn't been thinking about building a reputation. He had just wanted to make sure the man got home safely. It seemed that was how all the stories started. Small acts, done without expectation. But remember, for years, when Harrow joined him on the observation deck, Raylan spoke quietly. I think I understand now. It's not just that humans are different. It's that we remind people of something they want to believe still exists. That someone will stand by them when everything is falling apart. Harrow nodded. Exactly. And the galaxy, well, it doesn't forget those who prove it true. A few days later, Raylan received an official invitation from the Council of Marin Station to attend a celebration in his honor. They were naming him an honorary guardian of their world, a title given only to those who had risked everything for the station's safety. He almost turned it down. Ceremonies weren't his style, but Harrow insisted. You don't go for yourself. Harrow said, you go for everyone who believes in what you stand for. So Raylan went, and when he stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd, he saw more than just gratitude. He saw hope, people from different worlds, different species, standing together and cheering not just for him, but for the idea that unity and courage still mattered. After the ceremony, a young officer from Marin approached him. She had green skin, sharp golden eyes, and a uniform neatly pressed. I don't want to take much of your time, she said, but I wanted you to know, before the repairs, I had planned to transfer off the station. I didn't think it was worth the risk to stay. But when I saw you working through the tremors, not stopping, I realized something. If you were willing to fight for our home, I could too. So I stayed. And now, it's safer here because of you. Raylan didn't know how to reply. He just gave a quiet nod. On the journey back to the hub after the celebration, Raylan sat in his seat, watching the stars drift past. Messages continued to come in, some personal, some official, and yes, more proposals. He didn't answer them all, but he understood now why they came. It wasn't just about him. It was about what humans meant to the galaxy. As the hub came into view, Raylan thought to himself, maybe the stories will keep growing. Maybe the galaxy will keep making them bigger than life. And maybe that's a good thing, because if even one person finds the courage to stand and protect someone else because of those stories, then they're worth telling. And somewhere out there, on worlds of ice, desert, water, and forest, someone was telling the story of the human who wouldn't stop adding their own details, making it a little more dramatic. And in every version, the heart of it stayed the same. When danger came, the human stayed.